Hi, Brian here. Welcome to TreeBud Academy, where I talk about business, advertising, and marketing. Today, I want to cover a few common mistakes to avoid when you start advertising. Number one, not having enough cash flow to see things through. It's super important that you're managing your cash flow properly, especially when you're starting to go into advertising. Know your budget. Of course, it's not just the advertising budget, like, oh, yeah, of course, I can spend and afford $200 per month in advertising, but know exactly how much you're expecting to pull in terms of revenue and what your expenses are going to be in the next, 3 months minimum, ideally 6 months. Um, and then planning out and making sure that you put aside enough money to run your business as well as the advertising program. I recently did a video on how much you should be spending on ads, and I'll link it in the info card above. And in that video, I talked about it's not really how much should you spend, but the question is rather how much can you spend on ads. Watch the full video, please, to get the full explanation. So having sustained cash flow on the side to keep the ads on is super important because in most cases, it takes time for the campaigns to work. So what does this mean? Typically, when you're starting from zero for your advertising program, you have to collect data for it to start working. And a time frame to keep in mind is usually around 3 months. That could be as many as hundreds of thousands of impressions and thousands of clicks before you get to a point where you're collecting enough data to understand your audience targets, as well as what's messaging and landing pages are working for you. So let's call it, 3 cents or 30 cents, depending on how large your audience is. And that could mean something like $900 over the course of 3 months to start seeing results. So do you have enough cash to see things through until your ads start working? Which brings us to the next point, number two, not setting goals properly. Of course, when you start an advertising program, you're going to be like, yes, my goal is to get more business, to make sure I have a return on this investment. But there are other goals that you should consider setting before you start advertising. So things like testing your messaging, right? In the whole umbrella of testing your messaging, things like testing features versus benefits. Um, you know, within the within your list of features, which features to start advertising on, which benefits, right? And matching those with a particular audience target. You can also test your tone or voice of your ads. So things like whether to advertise based on aspirations versus based on fears. I'll go into a bit more detail on what each of these mean. So for example, features versus benefits. My favorite example is a four-wheel drive car. The feature itself is that the car has four-wheel drive. The benefit is that you can go off-road. I hope this can paint a clear picture of what a feature is versus what a benefit is. Aspirational marketing versus fear-based marketing. So things like, enjoy 10% off your next purchase versus don't miss out on 10%. The discount and the message is essentially the same, but how you're coming across is completely different. Number three, not considering the full funnel or the customer journey. Now, when you're starting to advertise, a lot of people miss out the fact that, when you think small budget or you want to have a super efficient campaign, you focus on the bottom of the funnel. In most cases, for small advertisers, um, it's probably not going to work because nobody knows who you are. As a consumer yourself, would you choose an unknown brand versus a brand that you are familiar with? Let's say all other things being equal. I'm pretty sure you would choose the brand that you're familiar with rather than going with a new brand. And for new brands or brands that people have not heard of, and in your case, it would be your brand, how are you going to build that familiarity? And you should chart a path for your audience to be familiar with your brand, to get to know it before you start advertising and focusing on the conversion aspect. So the full funnel or the full journey of the customer has to be kept in mind. And I have another tutorial that talks a bit about the things that you should know before getting started, and I'll link it in the info card above. So these are the 3 things that you would want to avoid: not having your cash flow planned out, setting incorrect goals or not having any goals set, and thirdly, not considering the full funnel or the full customer journey. Hi, Brian here. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. I really appreciate it. I make videos on business, advertising, and marketing, so be sure to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so that you're alerted when the next videos come out. So stay tuned.